Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Robinson with Synergy Chiropractic Center. I'm a licensed pharmacist and a certified functional medicine practitioner. Now I've been a pharmacist for over 10 years working in various retail and outpatient pharmacy settings. And last summer I left my retail pharmacy position to team up with Dr. Bampton, who has been a chiropractor for almost 20 years, and we help people using functional medicine. So what is functional medicine? I get asked this question almost every day. So to put it in simple terms, it is finding the root cause of your health problem and then supporting your body so that it can heal itself. And that will look very different for each person depending on your situation. So we look at the individual as a whole rather than just looking at groups of symptoms. So it's very different. And I'm on a mission to tell the world about my experience of healing using functional medicine. And if you are looking for more natural options, I think it's where you need to start. Today I want to tell you about 5 ways to get your kids to eat healthier. I've incorporated all of these things into our weekly routine, and I believe these have made such a difference in getting my kids to choose healthier foods. Not just to eat healthier foods, because if I tell them they need to eat something to get a snack, that's very different than them actually learning how to choose healthy foods. Because if they're choosing it, they understand that it's good fuel for their body, and that's a whole different ballgame. So number 1 is teach them to be mindful of sugar content. Now, if you know me, I'm always preaching about sugar, and my kids are probably no different than yours. Just because I eat healthy doesn't mean that they want to. And they're old enough now that they've had sugar and processed food when I'm not around, so they definitely prefer it for the taste. But I found that when I started discussing certain foods and whether or not they had a lot of sugar, my kids are more mindful of that now. They pay attention to what they eat. My 4-year-old will still eat sweets until he has a tummy ache. And from time to time, I let him indulge so that he remembers how it makes him feel. And that's how most of us are too, I think. Someone telling us sugar is bad for our body, it's just not enough. We have to feel the aftermath to change our behavior. My 7-year-old, she has experienced the wrath of sugar long enough to where sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes she will choose fruit over a treat. Now, this suggestion is not an overnight fix, but over time, your kids will pick up on which foods are the most nutritious and will help their body feel good. Now, number 2 is make healthier versions of their favorites. I go to Pinterest for cleaner versions of my kids' favorite meals. It is just chock full of great paleo versions of soups and sandwiches and casseroles that taste pretty close to what my family is used to eating, but without the processed junk and without the sugar. Now, when it comes to bread products, you could try sourdough versions of bread and pizza crust, biscuits, and other baked goods. Now, I'm actually pretty new to the sourdough bread club, mostly since I don't hardly eat bread or any version of it. But I plan to start trying some of these recipes for my family rather than continue to buy the processed junk from the store. So if any of you out there were like me and are wondering what's the deal with sourdough, I can tell you a few things that I've learned. So you can make it yourself using what's called a sourdough starter. Now, if you don't know what that is, I would suggest looking it up because it's more than I'm going to talk about in this video. And just remember, anything you make yourself at home with less ingredients is always going to be healthier than something you buy because of the added preservatives and dyes and sugar. And because of how it ferments, sourdough is often lower in gluten. So some people that can't tolerate gluten actually do okay with sourdough bread. Sourdough also has more active forms of good bacteria that break down some of the gluten and the sugars that are normally found in bread, so it can be easier to digest than regular bread. Number 3 is get them involved in the shopping and the planning and the cooking. I try to get my kids involved in the meal process whenever I can. This includes when I'm planning the meals, when I'm shopping for ingredients, and even when I'm actually chopping things up and preparing for the meal. Now, for kids that are toddler age, this is a little bit more difficult, but you may be surprised at what your little ones take an interest to. My school age kid, she always wants to help. And I found that since I involve them in the process, they tend to understand the work that goes into meal prep every day. And they appreciate that their food didn't just magically appear. They know that I'm doing all the work for what they see in front of them. And when they help, they take pride in their work, and they are more likely to eat or at least try whatever we've made. Now, depending on the kid, this suggestion can go a long way. Number 4 is encourage them to try at least a bite of vegetables. Now, even if your kids don't actually eat the vegetables that you put on their plate, there is scientific evidence showing that after multiple times of tasting certain foods, we may actually start to like them. And I have actually seen this to be true with my kids. My daughter, who is 7 now, she eats several different kinds of vegetables that I would never have dreamed she would have eaten, like when she was 3 or 4. She eats them now. And my son, who's 4, doesn't like any vegetables, but he has started to tolerate broccoli and green beans after several months of trying them each time we have them for dinner. So progress is progress, even if it is baby steps. So I just encourage you to just stick with it, all you health conscious mamas out there. Number 5 is try to make their food fun. This is a good one, but honestly, this is the hardest one for me. By the time I made a meal, I've already put so much time and effort into feeding my children. Now I have to make it fun. If you haven't figured it out already, I am not one of those Pinterest moms with the dinosaur-shaped salmon and the unicorn and rainbow fruit cutouts, but I do make fruit and vegetable juices with our juicer, and we call the green ones Hulk juice, and the red ones are Spider-Man juice. Now this works every time with my son, and I even put probiotic powder in there, and seriously, both of my kids, there's never one complaint. They always drink it. And especially if I let them help with juicing. And get this, my son was actually crying the other day because I had made the juice without him since we were in a hurry. To get them to eat meat, we refer to our meat source as dinosaur meat. And we talk about what kind of dinosaur we're eating and which kid hunted the dinosaur for that meal. It's kind of weird, but it gets them to be excited to eat their protein. Now, you don't have to be super elaborate with trying to make things fun, but you can find simple ways to do that with your food. So these are some of the ways that I use to get my kids to eat healthier. And we've definitely made progress towards eating healthier as a family, but it takes time. And I hope that you can use some of these things to get your family on board with choosing more nutritious food that not only tastes good, but helps them feel good too.